No mai haere mai, kia ora koutou, ko Monique Bradley tōku ingoa, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to tonight's live stream. It's a very special month. Welcome back to those of you who have joined us previously. It is Diabetes Action Month 2021, and this is our much anticipated Facebook Live session. If you've joined us earlier this month, great to have you back. And this month we have been focusing on foot care and diabetes health and awareness. And if you are tuning in for the first time, kia ora to you also. The theme for Diabetes Action Month is Step Up for Diabetes. And here in New Zealand, Diabetes New Zealand has really been focusing their attention on the importance of good foot care for all people with diabetes, so we can prevent the huge number of amputations that are happening every year. So tonight, a very special occasion because we're actually celebrating a very big discovery that was made 100 years ago. Insulin. Important topic, game-changing and life-changing for millions of people around the world living with diabetes. It's a huge milestone and one that has saved so many lives and changed the world. So whether you are on insulin yourself or you have a friend or family member who relies on it, like I do, we encourage you to celebrate this, a life-saving discovery for all people living with diabetes. So tonight we want you to be part of the chat. We want to know what insulin means to you. So please, in our comments feed, it's great to see so many of you already on the live stream here. Comment and tell us what insulin means to you and how you plan to look after yourself this Diabetes Action Month. So tonight we have 4 very special guests on the stream. And we're going to show you those special guests up on the screen now. First of all, kia ora to you all. We have endocrinologist Dr. Carl Peters, who you can see there. He's going to give you a wave. Kia ora, Carl. And he's going to talk about the importance of insulin and a little of its history as well. So we're going to be asking Carl some of those big questions about his own journey as a type 1 and also what he thinks might be next with regards to research and new developments for living with insulin. Kia ora to you, Carl.
Hi, kia ora.
Kia ora. Now also tonight you can see that talented duo down the bottom corner there. We are delighted to introduce you to our very own pop sensation Vince Harder and his gorgeous singer-songwriter, songbird wife Abby Lee Harder. They are absolutely amazing, so talented. Now Vince and Abby actually have 2 children and one has been diagnosed recently with type 1 diabetes. And that has been life-changing for them as parents. So they're going to share a little bit about their journey and we want you guys to be part of that discussion as well. Now, as we all know, living with diabetes can be really overwhelming. That's kind of telegraphing a little bit about what you're going to hear from them tonight as well and their experience with diabetes. So kia ora to both of you as well. Welcome to the stream.
Kia ora. Thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you for being here. And our last guest on the stream tonight, we're very lucky to have him, former CEO of New Zealand Beef and Lamb and also someone living with type 2 diabetes, Rod Slater. Now he's going to be talking to us. He's got his socks ready. I'm so excited to see those. And he's going to be talking to us about how CGM Tech is helping control his BG levels and why we need tech funded. So we're going to have a big discussion about that. But Rod, kia ora and welcome to the stream as well.
Kia ora, pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Now, as I mentioned, for everybody on the live stream tonight, we want you to be part of the conversation. You can send us in your questions. If something resonates with you tonight, send your questions into the feed. We've got multiple feeds here tonight. Send your questions in, and time permitting, we will get our panel of experts tonight to hopefully provide some insights or some ideas about how they manage their own diabetes or their child with diabetes and how they live the best and fullest life that they possibly can. And again, tell us what insulin means to you tonight in that chat as well. So good to see so many of you on that live stream. Right, let's get started, get underway. We're going to cut to Carl very shortly, but before we do, there's a couple of things I'd really like to point out before we get into the live stream. So first of all, if you are someone who is on your diabetes journey, you're just new to the journey, or if you are concerned about your health and well-being, perhaps you might need help and support for yourself or somebody else living with diabetes, you can call 0800 Diabetes and you can speak to somebody directly, or the details there on your screen. Head to diabetesactionmonth.org and make sure you reach out and ask for help. On that website, there's loads of resources and information that's so helpful on your journey. And that's what this month is all about. And remember too, it is Diabetes Action Month here. One thing I want to do is give a very big shout out to one of our supporters. Now, you saw those beautiful socks from Rod before. These socks are absolutely amazing, designed by the wonderful people at Mr. Vintage. They are exclusive, so you need to hop online and order immediately. Super comfortable for those of you who have foot problems, like I do. Very comfortable inside your shoes, great for protecting your feet, and they're super soft. And what I love most about these is that it says on the socks that big journeys start with small steps. So it's a wonderful way to remind you that every step you take is a great step in the right direction. Right, so let's get started with our first guest, and that's given us plenty of time for people to hop on the live stream. Kia ora to you all. Now, first up tonight, I'm grateful to speak with you tonight, Dr. Carl Peters. Truly amazing work that you're doing, and you're also living with type 1 diabetes as well. But tonight we are celebrating insulin. So first of all, as a professional expert, tell us what is insulin and why is it so important for people with diabetes?
Oh, look, thanks very much, and thanks very much for having me on. Look, I wanted to just, I guess, retell the story a bit about the discovery of insulin, because I think it's just so important to know where we've come from, where we are now, and to put, I guess, the problems of today in context of what's happened before us. Look, the discovery of insulin, like many things in history, was somewhat fortuitous. It initially began with a Dr. Langerhans, who discovered these islands of cells in the pancreas. To this day, they're still called the islets of Langerhans.
Wow.
These islets of Langerhans are the cells, contain the cells that produce insulin. So initially, they didn't know that they produced insulin. It wasn't until that they removed the pancreas from dogs that they found that they developed diabetes, that they realized that there was this hormone being produced from the pancreas. And it also wasn't until they realized that it was these specific cells within the pancreas, when they were destroyed, they developed diabetes. And so there was this hormone that was being produced from those cells in the pancreas that was really important. They didn't know what that hormone was, but they called it insulin. Insulin is derived from the Latin insula, meaning island, meaning a hormone coming from these islands of cells. And at the time, they weren't sure what it was. So then, rather fortuitously, an orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Banting, was requested to attend a lab, and he had an interest in specific dissection of the pancreas. What he managed to do was take away the pancreatic duct in dogs, and what that allowed was the pancreas to, I guess, self-destruct, but leaving these specific cells. And when he did that and took those cells out and crushed them and made a manure and injected it back into dogs who had diabetes, all of a sudden their diabetes went away. And that was the discovery of insulin.
That's incredible, Dr. Carl. I actually think we've got a couple of images showing those very early stages there as well. So these were the discoverers of, wow, like you said, Dr. Banting there.
So Banting and his student Best on the right there, and those were the dogs that, or one of the dogs that partook, and so that was the discovery of insulin. He won the Nobel Prize. It actually went to Banting and MacLeod, the Nobel Prize for the discovery of insulin. The Nobel Prize also was shared with Best, who was the lab partner of Banting, and Collip. Collip was a pharmacist, and he was actually a really influential person, and he managed to take the insulin that was being produced from from Banting's experiments and purify it. It wasn't until it was purified that it was then able to be used in humans.
Wow.
So the Nobel Prize was shared amongst that group. Then a number of things happened, and I guess if you could bring up just that second picture, just to run through briefly, a number of things happened over time. Hagdorn, he was a physician who added this protamine to insulin, and that made it longer acting. We still call insulin NPH, neutral protamine Hagdorn insulin, named after this gentleman that introduced the idea of something that could make insulin longer acting, so people didn't have to inject it every few hours. And then later on, so initially the insulins that were being produced did come from animals, bovine and porcine insulins. It wasn't until really the late 1970s and then early 1980s that it was worked out how to produce or mass produce insulin. It wouldn't have been possible to continue to produce animal insulins to the degree that we need them now. And it was in the 1980s that they were able to start mass production. And the way they did that actually is with what we call genetic recombination. So the genetic material that is needed to produce insulin is inserted into a bacteria, and that bacteria produces insulin for us. It's then a matter of just getting that out and putting it into a vial, and that's how we have our insulin today. So it's that recombinant DNA technology that allows us to have the mass production of insulin that we have now.
That's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely brilliant. So what did people with diabetes do before this discovery?
Yeah. Well, before the discovery of insulin, people with diabetes, essentially, there was no cure. And the only thing people could do is to restrict the amount of glucose that they were eating. So profound carbohydrate restriction, what we would term now as a ketogenic diet, essentially that was the only method of prolonging life, but it was no cure. Another, I guess, a thing that I think is important, just along that pathway of insulin discovery, later on, it was worked out how to change the insulin. So when we started producing recombinant human insulin, it was then able to be modified. And those modifications are what now produce the insulin analogs that we use today. So the rapid-acting insulin analogs, Novorapid, Apidra, Humalog, and the long-acting insulin analogs like Lantus. And it's really about the changes that can occur in the makeup, the protein makeup of that insulin, that allow the insulin duration to be prolonged or shortened. There was one other really interesting part of the history of insulin that I think is just worth reflecting upon. It was really back in the 1950s that biology didn't really understand what a hormone was, what a protein was, and how it worked. Insulin was the first hormone or protein to actually be mapped out, the what we call the amino acid sequence to be mapped out, and this protein structure to be realized. Prior to that, it was thought that proteins were these crazy little things that changed and morphed and did all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But it was Friedrich Sanger that taught us that no, proteins are actually these specific structures, and they're made up of these specific amino acid sequences. And he earned the Nobel Prize for that. So that was just one other thing that really was an interesting part of the insulin history, that really it changed biology forever. Friedrich Sanger didn't just stop there. He went on and earned another Nobel Prize for mapping out DNA and in what we call Sanger sequencing, which up until the last decade really was the way that we sequence DNA. And now we've moved on to next generation sequencing. But he was a really important part of the history of insulin and really biology. So I've got just a few things here from historically from our cupboard here at the Diabetes Centre at Waitemata.
Now, I know
here,
on the screen here, we've got, I was going to actually just ask you about how much has the delivery of insulin changed, and our producers just brought up this graphic to show everybody. It just,
absolutely,
the difference between what was done, say, in the 60s to what's done now, going from a backpack that you walked around wearing through, or one of those bigger machines, through
absolutely,
to the devices that people are wearing in their arm, as an example. What a change!
This is the history of where we've come from, and I've just got here just in front of me. If you come back to and that's the insulin pumps and pens. New Zealand's first insulin pump and first insulin pen.
Amazing.
This here is. I'm not sure if you're seeing this or if you're still seeing the.
We're going to come back to you now.
Okay.
Yes.
This here is one of the devices that people use to deliver insulin. I've got some more historical insulin devices. That was how you would inject insulin. This is a drug tariff pack. I'm not sure if you'd get that through customs these days, but that was your insulin administration, and this was one of the early insulin pen devices. This is metal. It's very heavy. It's very heavy and cumbersome. That was an historical insulin pen. An old glucometer. Imagine carrying that around in your pocket to do your blood glucose.
Actually, my dad had one of those.
Absolutely, yeah. And this was one that I thought I'd bring through. This was one of my, well, it wasn't my personal one, but I had one of these, and that was back in the mid 80s when I was diagnosed with diabetes. That was one of the first glucose meters that I ever used. So just a few historical things there, and I hope that was of interest.
Absolutely brilliant. So obviously that's been the history of how insulin has been delivered. It's so vastly different from the technology that's available today. So for people who are new on their diabetes journey, who might be seeing this or hearing this for the first time, can you just very quickly share what is the latest technology? Where are we heading with diabetes? What's the future? What's the vision? Where is the research going? Share with us that future vision, because I think everybody wants to feel that we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. So look, the next big step was the ability to constantly monitor blood glucose levels. And once you can do that, and we can now, you can start to automate insulin delivery. If the glucose level is high, you need more insulin. If your glucose level is dropping, you need less insulin. And you can automate that process. And so really that is the next step, automated insulin delivery, and it's really exciting. We are right on the verge now of automated insulin delivery in New Zealand. Both the New Zealand insulin pump companies, the Tandem insulin pump and the Medtronic insulin pumps, both of the funded insulin pumps have automated insulin delivery systems that are becoming available. In fact, the Medtronic system the hardware should be landing in New Zealand very shortly, within a matter of a week or two. And the Tandem system, it is a software update, and we should have that available very shortly. So that is the next step, really, for insulin delivery. There's obviously a lot of other developments happening in the diabetes space, but for insulin per se, that's where we're headed.
And of course, one of the chats we're going to have on the live stream tonight is, particularly with Rod and his story, is should we be pushing the government? Should we get the message out there to get this all funded for people living with diabetes? A leading question.
Well, I mean, it's a no-brainer. We should be having availability of continuous glucose monitoring for all possible persons with diabetes. The reality is that that's probably not going to be the case, and it is an expensive technology. But look, we are 100% behind everyone who requires the ability to monitor their glucose having access to that, because it helps just unmeasurably.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Look, thank you so much for your magic tonight. Just here, I've learnt so much. I've lived with a diabetes journey for many, many years through my family. I have learnt so much. So thank you for sharing all of that information. Utterly fascinating. Thank you, Dr. Carl. Well, what a story. I hope you've learnt a lot as well. Such an incredible thing, insulin, saving so many lives around the world. If you've just joined the live stream and you're wondering what the heck is going on, it's all about the story of insulin tonight. And also we're celebrating 100 years of the discovery of insulin, while also talking about how to improve your quality of life, taking a step in the right direction and living well with diabetes. And coming up, we've got some great stories from amazing people, inspiring people who are here to share their knowledge of their own diabetes journeys, living with diabetes. And we want you to be part of that conversation as well. In fact, as I'm having a look over in the feed as well, we've got people who are commenting on what insulin means to them and their diabetes journey. We can see every single one of your comments. So thanks for being part of the chat. We've got a few comments here, one from Abby Leaf. This is brilliant. Kia ora, Abby. I hope you're doing well. Abby has said, insulin has saved my life. My levels were dangerously high and was asked how I wasn't in hospital. Now my levels are a lot lower. I've done it all in 1 year and 8 months. Congratulations. I'm on both Lantus and Nova Rapid. Now also on Trulicity, which I know isn't an insulin, but what a difference since being on the insulins. I am so happy for you. Congratulations. And I believe there are a couple of other names here. Let me have a look here. Teresa, where are you? And I'll just find your comment here. Teresa, Please keep your comments coming through. It is wonderful to hear your stories because you never know when your knowledge or experience might actually help someone else. So be part of the chat. I'm just struggling to find Teresa here. Trying to find... Oh, Teresa, there you are. Teresa, type 1, 10-year-old daughter. Thank you so much for sharing. Glad we have insulin, although not a cure, and gives me hope for a cure one day. Nova Rapid and Atlantis. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Joe Chapman, thank you so much for sharing as well. November is the month as a whānau, that our life changed. Hubby was diagnosed with type 1. This means I'm always reminded to be thankful for the clever people who managed to create insulin. That means he is still here today. Kia ora, that's absolutely beautiful. Keep your comments coming in. We love you being part of the chat. And we want to know what insulin really means to you. Now, coming up, we have an amazing couple who are about to share their story. But before we jump into that, I want to share with you a couple of great things that are happening this month. So it is Diabetes Action Month, super important month. And there's some great things coming up, including a first of its kind awareness event to help raise funds to support the great work that Diabetes New Zealand is doing and to help them help you more, to help them help fight for your advocacy, to help get your voice out there and hopefully get that funding that's required to help get the technology. So coming up this Friday is Sneaker Friday. I'm so excited. If you've got the awesome Diabetes New Zealand socks, or if you're on Instagram or Facebook, take a photo of your sneakers, share them online and make sure you tag in Diabetes New Zealand or use the hashtag Sneaker Friday, or use both, be fabulous. And also there's a Give a Little page which we'll bring back up on screen for you. Now this is a page we want you to share with everyone. Share it wide and far and wide, because we need to raise funds to help that work continue to support you all to live well. So yeah, be part of the fun. Share your pictures of your sneakers. Get your kids on there as well. And let's help spread awareness for diabetes here in New Zealand. Right, time for our next guests as well. I am super excited to hear them back here on the chat because I was in rehearsals with them yesterday for tonight's live stream. I've heard them singing and they are truly magical and have a huge story to share. Kia ora Vince, kia ora Abby Lee, welcome to...
Kia ora, thanks for having us.
Look, you guys have got an incredible story. So you've got two beautiful children who I believe popped into our pre-rehearsal for the live stream. Beautiful. Yeah. And Presley is your daughter, who was recently diagnosed with type 1. So tell us, how did that all happen?
Yeah, so Presley was 17 months old when she got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and we don't have a history of type 1 in either of our families, so it was a major shock for us. We thought we knew a bit about diabetes, about type 1 diabetics. We knew that you had to control glucose levels with insulin, but we did not realise the extent of how much we would need to monitor her and just how life-changing it would be for us. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but we're a little over a year in now, and she's doing well, and we've learned so much, and we're just appreciative of this opportunity to sort of help spread some awareness and educate people, because I think for us, we had to learn so much, and it's been a bit of a journey to educate our family members and friends and stuff about what type 1 diabetes is and what life looks like for us now. So yeah, that's kind of been a bit of a driving force for us now since Presley's diagnosis.
Wow. So last year we did our first live streams with Diabetes New Zealand, and I learnt so much about the fact that every day a person living with diabetes is making more than 100 decisions every day about their wellness. So obviously you're a support person for somebody living with type 1, and they're still learning their languaging and you're still learning their behaviour because there's so little. So what is it like what is life like having a child with type 1 that you're having to manage all the time, and watch and understand their behaviour. Tell us about that experience.
Well, it's constant. Basically from when you wake up, for me, I'm always like checking my phone because I have access to her readings through my phone, which is great. One of the best things about the technology is that we can use our phones, use our devices to kind of check her glucose. It's just everything from feeding her to having to give her the right amount of insulin. It's just a constant thing. Yeah.
And I think because she was so young when she was first diagnosed, she wasn't able to communicate if she was feeling high, if she was feeling low. So having that access to that technology was like life-changing for us because, when she can't say, the only thing you can rely on is these numbers that you're looking at on your phone and or scanning in. So it is challenging. And like I said, we didn't have any experience of it before. And she's our youngest, so we were sort of like, okay, this is new. But it gets easier. Like now, it's our new normal, so I think everyone's used to it. But yeah, it's definitely that. I think we can't leave her. It's not the same situation with our son Jackson. It's sort of like people have to be educated about her. You can't leave her with anyone without educating them about what you have to do and the signs you have to look out for, and no, you can't just give her an ice cream if you feel like it. And
so we're very grateful for the people in our work who actually learn and look after her. So a big shout out to Mum.
Yeah, who's got her at the moment.
She's probably watching right now.
Yeah.
How wonderful. What incredible support. So what I really want to know is so you got the diagnosis and you were obviously in the process of learning how to administer the insulin, and what was that first part of that journey like for you?
It was a bit, to be honest, of course it was daunting because this is like something you've never had to do before, and also it kind of goes against your instinct to hurt your child, and that's what you're doing. You have to jab them to get them something so they don't die.
For me, first time getting the news was very daunting. Like learning about it, but even just getting the news that she, was diagnosed with type 1 was just like a bit of a shock. And I was like, what does that mean for us? Like how do we take care of her? And obviously, once we're at the hospital and learning about how to give her insulin, and just everything from the pens to the CGM as well. We're quite lucky that we're able to get onto a CGM quite early because Abby, she researched a lot quite early on, as we're in the hospital and just asking about, asking all the questions about CGMs and everything. And so we kind of got onto the technology early, but to be able to just, administer insulin was quite freaky at first.
I think I made you do the first one because I don't do it.
We didn't want to do it. Like we were just a little bit freaked out, but we knew that this was something that we had to learn, something that we had to get used to, and that was going to be life changing for her and to help her as well.
Yeah, and I think because she's so little, the dosage that she's on is, especially when she was using pens, is so tiny that it was just really hard to kind of get used to working with such minimal amounts and really seeing the effect that would have on her glucose levels. And I think that's something that I didn't expect.
Wow, just incredible. So I know that there's some terms that you guys have mentioned, like tonight we've talked about Dexcom and CGM, and I know that some people on the stream, and I really have to say a big shout out to everybody who is sharing their stories about their kids or the partners they support, as well as the people who are sharing in the stream about their own journey of living with diabetes. I just want to know, can you share very quickly what those terms mean? Because I know some people on the stream are very new to this. They may have only, I was just talking to somebody over the last week since seeing the first live stream the other week, that they've just been diagnosed. So they're learning about this. So can you tell us very quickly, what is Dexcom? What is CGM? I have to remember.
Oh,
Yes, CGM.
I
Thank
don't have
you.
my.
I was just getting notes as well.
I wish we had some of these things to show you as well.
We had Presley to use as a prop. But, basically, CGM stands for Continuous Glucose Monitor. I think Dr. Carl kind of alluded to that before. And what it is they're little sensors that sit, for us, we use it in the back of Presley's arm. And it has a little filament that sits in her fat, basically, and it continuously gives you their blood glucose levels. There's a couple of different, I think there's 3 different ones that you can get in New Zealand. We used 2. Initially, Presley was on a Libre, and we paired that up with a transmitter called a Meow Meow. And what was awesome about that was it gave us the ability to get alerted if she was going low or high. But when she moved on to pump, which was June of this year, she started using a Dexcom. So Dexcom G6 is what she's on now, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, the Dexcom is a CGM as well, but it has a built-in transmitter.
Yeah.
So we can basically get the readings on our phone. And
what Vince was talking about before is Presley's got a designated phone that stays with her wherever she goes. So if she's not with us, she's still got that phone with her. But Vince can get the readings on his phone as well, so he can remotely check in. Which for parents of a type 1 child, especially one so little, it just gives you so much peace of mind.
Yeah.
And
it's so incredible. Like we can set up alarms on our phones as well. So if she's starting to look like her blood glucose is trending low or high, then it'll give us an alarm so that we know, okay, cool, we need to correct that, or we need to, if she's going low, give her something to bring her blood glucose up again.
I can be out shopping with the kids, and then I'll get a text from Vince going, I can see she's going high.
Just making sure you guys know.
Making sure you're aware.
Wow.
She's going high.
Look, technology is absolutely marvelous, and as we're hearing from you firsthand, it is changing lives. This is absolutely brilliant. So I guess my leading question of the night is, do you think this technology should be government funded?
100%.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Yay.
Yes.
For us,
I totally agree.
Yeah, and for us, it gave us the ability to sleep through the night. Because otherwise, we would be up every hour checking her.
Well, we were a little bit.
We were.
In early days was a bit hard, but yeah.
But for us, the function of alarming when she's going low or going high, it's invaluable, and it's ridiculous to me that it can't be accessed by people who they don't have a choice in this. You don't have a choice about whether you get diabetes or not. And we're acutely aware that there's families out there that have more than type 1 person in their families too, and the cost is just crippling. So yes, it should be funding.
I agree, and I'm so glad that you guys are getting behind this, and you're also using your platform and your voice to help spread this message, because if we speak loud enough, if we sing loud enough, hopefully the government will pay attention and help the more than 250,000 people living, I think, with diabetes in New Zealand. It's even more than that. More than 270,000 people. They need support. So if anybody out there watching tonight is from the government, do your part and get in touch with Diabetes New Zealand through diabetes.org.nz, and let's all do our part. Now, I'm hoping that by the end of tonight we might hear the beautiful song that you guys have written and produced to help raise money for diabetes, the Diabetes Foundation. I think this would be amazing. Are we able to get a bit of a song out of you by the end of the evening tonight?
Yeah, I think so.
Fantastic. I can't wait for everybody to hear it. The song is called Overwhelmed, and I know everybody will love it. And of course, proceeds from every download of that song will go directly to Diabetes New Zealand. So thank you so much. Now, finally, before we pop into our third guest, my understanding is that you've been doing your part for Diabetes New Zealand, and just recently they've had a competition for young artists to submit artwork to cover the CGM devices. And you guys were part of the judging panel. So a young lady by the name of, I have to find her name here, Sophia. was the winner. It was from MedStyle, and this was the winning design. So tell us about judging this, because it sounds like an amazing cause, an amazing event. What prompted you to choose this design?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. There were some pretty awesome and creative concepts that were sent through.
I thought that the design was quite clever, and that she was drawing different colored blood cells
and little syringes and everything in the little cells.
The design, and it just looked really cool.
Yeah, it definitely was one that stood out to all of us. So it was easy to touch that one, and Sophia was
Awesome. And so, this is another opportunity to raise funds for Diabetes New Zealand, to do that work at that advocacy level and support level for everyone in New Zealand living with diabetes. So if you want to order yours, head to medstyle.co.nz down, and you can get that patch and you can pop it onto your CGM. But I do have to say a big congratulations also to the winner, Sophia from Pāhia Tour as well. Sophia Sherman, I hope you're on the live stream. Congratulations to you. Beautiful artwork. What stood out for me was the fact that it said living brave. And I think every person living with diabetes and their support people, that's exactly what they're doing. So Vince, Abby, great to have you. Thank you so much to both of you. We're going to come back to you at the end of the stream and hear your beautiful song. Thank you once again for sharing your story. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for being part of the conversation tonight. We have one more guest coming up, which I know you will love as well. We are celebrating 100 years of insulin, the discovery of insulin, which is saving people's lives all around the world. And I believe some of your comments coming through in the stream are amazing. I'm just being told here. Can you just pop that piece of paper down? Cassandra and Hayley McDonald. All right, Hayley, I've been told to read out your comments. Let me just, Hayley McDonald. My daughter Peyton, aged 12, is a type 1 for 5 years. Grateful for the amazing people who discovered insulin. So am I. What an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, and I believe she's attached to this gorgeous bracelet that I'm wearing. Oh, I've just been told this. Now, if you've had a look at this, and you might remember back in the days, the Medic Alert bracelets, well, these have been upgraded to a website called My Identity. What I love about these is that there has been a new bracelet just released as well. And this is truly amazing. Check out this information. Hayley is My Identity, I've just been told. Thank you so much for that. I'm talking to my producers here. This is amazing. I love this. So if you, just as a shout out for everyone, if you are living life to the fullest, Diabetes New Zealand also recommend that you do wear a medical ID bracelet just like this. And so Diabetes New Zealand actually has a partnership with My Identity. And if you purchase one of their 4 special bracelets as your medical ID, you'll also be supporting Diabetes New Zealand. And if you haven't seen one, obviously, this is the one that I'm wearing, and I believe this is the gorgeous bracelet that celebrates the life of Winsome Johnson, who is in fact the oldest living person who has been living on insulin in the world, and she's here in New Zealand. Now, Winsome is actually 80, she's been on insulin for 87 years, and it has continued to help her live the fullest and best life that she can. So I hope wherever you are, Winsome, you're amazing. You're an absolute inspiration to everybody in the diabetes community, whether you're type 1, type 2, whether you have gestational diabetes, to all of us. You're amazing. And a big thank you to My Identity as well. Hayley, thank you so much for what you're doing. Right, it is time to pop over to meet our third guest for the night. I'm super excited to have him on the stream because he's somebody you need to listen to. So he is the former CEO of Beef and Lamb New Zealand. He is Rod Slater. Kia ora to you, Rod.
Kia ora, and there's your patch, see? Just so you know, that's what they look like.
Over, show it one more time and go that way a little bit more.
That way?
Beautiful. No, the other way. Right there. Absolutely brilliant. So before I dive into your actual interview questions, I want to know, because I don't wear one. What does it feel like to wear one?
Well, you just don't even know they're there, really. The biggest danger is wearing it on your arm. You can knock it off a door jamb or whatever, but you don't even know they're there. And the job they do is just amazing in terms of the information they give you about what your levels are. And information is king in any industry, and it's certainly king in the diabetes industry. So you can adjust your levels, whether it's insulin, whether it's taking sugar, to keep yourself level. It's just a wonderful invention, the Dexcom.
Brilliant. So a great invention that goes hand in hand with insulin, of course. You know, both great inventions.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So first, Rod, I just want to ask you if you'd like to share a little bit about your diabetes journey. When did you find out you had diabetes?
Well, funnily enough, I was around in my late 40s when I was lucky enough to be involved with the New Zealand Olympic team in Atlanta as manager of the sailing team. And I remember the team doctor saying to you one day, "Have you ever had a check for diabetes?" And no, why would I do that? He said, "I've just been observing you. I think you could well have diabetes." Well, it turned out he was right. So after I came back to New Zealand, I got diagnosed. I was shown to have diabetes. Initially, it was just diet control, but very rapidly, and I would say rapidly over a period of about 4 or 5 years, I went downhill in terms of needing insulin. And when you've been a young well, I wasn't young then, but when you've been a sports person all your life, you think you're bulletproof. And that was probably the biggest thing to deal with, was a psychological thing of, goodness me, you know, I'm going to have this for the rest of my life. And I remember asking my diabetes specialist, Dr. Rick Cupfield, "How old is your oldest patient?" And he said 82. And I thought, oh, well, that's not too bad. If I can get to 82, that's not a bad innings. But in my case, just to repeat, it was a very rapid downhill process. So within 5 to 6 years, I was actually on insulin, initially with the pen, and still only doing the finger pricking to know what your levels were. And then as big pumps came on stream into new technology, I'm one of these people that love gadgets. So I've got the watch that tells me what my levels are as well. And in this case, gadgets and technology is just a lifesaver for diabetics.
Absolutely agree. I totally agree. So I want to jump back a little bit and just ask, particularly for people who are new to their own diabetes journey, what kind of changes did you need to make when you were first diagnosed?
Interestingly enough, being type 2, of course, there's this aura or this thinking that you've got diabetes, you deserve it because you haven't been exercising. Well, that was the opposite in my case. I'd played sport all my life. I ran consistently, so I was relatively fit. The biggest change I had to make was to diet. And to be honest, I wouldn't say I was that brilliant at it to start with. You know, it's not easy giving up some of the food you love and the drinks you love, but that was probably the most significant change. And as I said, the psychological thing of getting over it, that I was no longer bulletproof.
Wow, a big change for you. And did that change your family dynamic? Did the support network, how has that all worked for you?
Well, the biggest change has been on my wife, Leslie, to be honest, because it wasn't long into the journey that I started having hypos in the middle of the night, and which was really scary for her. In fact, one night she had to call an ambulance because she just couldn't wake me up. The ambulance arrives and they inject you, and you come around quite quickly. So for her, it's been a harder road than for me. I think watching my diet, sometimes I get so annoyed because she's watching over me, as you can imagine. I'm all right. But thank goodness for that. You need the people like that caring for you. So yes, for her, it was probably more of a problem than it has been for me.
Gotcha. So we've been asking our followers tonight in the stream, there's so many comments as well, what insulin means to them. As someone with type 2, what would you say to answer that question?
Oh, very simple, life-changing, absolutely life-changing. From the moment I started to get on insulin and I could monitor what I was doing, things got so much better. And in particular, when the pumps came along, that just made such a huge difference. Backed up by the CGMs, the Dexcom monitoring system, as I said earlier, you've got knowledge of where you are, and knowledge is king.
So I know that technology and gadgets are your thing, and you've one of the things we've talked about obviously is a CGM, and we've mentioned Dexcom, but you're talking about the pumps, and I know that Abby also mentioned that previously. For people who are new to this world, tell me about the pumps. How does that work for you?
Well, it is just superb, and the pump development in New Zealand or globally, but in particular New Zealand, is sort of almost there as being an artificial pancreas. For example, in the middle of the night, if my levels start to drop, the pump recognises that, and it'll actually stop producing insulin. I know that we're not far away from the opposite happening in terms of technology. But that's been great as well. Since I've had a pump, I would not have had a hypo at night for the last 7 or 8 years. It just hasn't happened because the warning systems are there to take care of that.
That's absolutely incredible. So, I mean, well done, awesome for you. And look, this is what I want for other people. That's why we're having these live streams, is to understand what's available to help people, because really we're a community, we're a whānau, you know, we need to share this information. So one of the things, my big leading question of the night is, do you think, in your opinion, should the government be funding? Should we be shouting and screaming from the rooftops to get funding for this technology?
There's no question. Absolutely no question that it should be funded. And in actual fact, not to fund it will cost the country more in the longer term than funding it, because it's the long-term harm that is done to diabetics and to the health system and everything. As Dr. Carl said, it's an absolute no-brainer, but it's not easy convincing people.
I totally agree. So collectively, if we raise our voices, hopefully the government will start to listen. And a big shout out also to Diabetes New Zealand for really championing this, and for your part with that as well, Rod. Thank you so much for your wisdom. I have thoroughly enjoyed our chat.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So, speaking of technology, one of the things I did want to mention before we jump to a quick group panel chat is, if you haven't already downloaded it, go to the App Store or go to Google Play and download the My Diabetes Journey app. This is your app. It's a free app. It is fantastic. You can actually monitor how you feel. You can monitor how you eat through this app. You add in all the data. There's even one part of the app which has exercises that you can do to help your well-being. And there's even a part where you can upload photos of your feet to the app so that you can monitor any changes in your feet, because of course that's part of what we're trying to raise awareness for this month. My Diabetes Journey app in App Store or Google Play. I've just been asked to mention, we're going to open up the floor now. I've just had a question come through from Athilia. I hope I said that right. Let me just look for that question. And let's bring everybody back onto the stream. I'm just letting my producer know as well. Kia ora, everybody. Thank you all for being part of tonight's chat. I'm just going to find this comment for you. How are you all feeling, by the way? Fantastic? Great.
Good.
So, great. Excellent. Thank you all for your contributions tonight. I'm just going to bring up the question now, which I've just lost on the phone. Technology is wonderful for diabetes. Here we go. Right, great question. Diabetes runs in my family. My grandparents, parents, aunties, and even 2 of my siblings and I are diabetic. Insulin is a lifesaver, and thankfully I've still got my grandparents here. Wonderful. Insulin and diabetes meant that we are able to talk about it, but also meant that each of us are different in our diabetic journey. Also, if anyone wants to chat about their diabetes or wants to give advice, please do. And luckily we have a panel of experts and people living with diabetes as well to answer some of those questions. So I'm going to the feed right now as well to get some questions. First of all, for people who are new to diabetes, think they may have signs or symptoms, think they might have children with signs or symptoms, What should they be looking for first of all? Dr. Carl, let's start with you. What are the signs and symptoms people should be looking for?
First, going to the toilet more frequently than normal and losing weight. Those are the key things that people need to. If you notice something with someone with those symptoms, then go to your doctor.
Thank you so much. Now, Vincent, Abby, let's talk about children. What should we be looking out for with regards to children? Did you see changes in behaviour? What should we be looking for?
In our instance, we didn't know what to look out for, and she was a little bit too young to kind of communicate what the symptoms were. And we even went to a few doctors before we ended up in hospital who just put it down to a virus. And from what I understand, often you can get a virus, and that kind of is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and that then brings on your diabetes. So for us, it started with Presley just having a fever, and then she just didn't get better. She was super thirsty. She was wetting through her nappies, and then she ended up going into a state called DKA. And then when that happened, there was vomiting, there was diarrhea, there was just sleeping all the time, constant thirst, and she just was super lethargic. So after, we had a bit of a horror story. We ended up in PICU for 2 nights just with her on IV fluids and insulin before we could move up to ward. If we had known sort of what that the signs could be pointing towards diabetes, we would have probably pushed to go to hospital earlier. But because the doctors that we saw weren't looking out for it, and because she was so young, they kind of just put it down to a gastrobug. So I think at day 5, she wasn't getting better. We knew that something was serious, and so just went straight to hospital from there.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I think this information is so important. That's what these streams are about. Now, Rod, you talked about your journey, and you talked about how the doctor had noticed the changes in your behaviour. What changes did he notice?
I think, just as Dr. Carl said, I was drinking an awful lot. Admittedly, we were in a hot climate, but I was drinking insatiably, and I think that's what he picked up mainly was that sort of behaviour, abnormal first. I still felt fine. I didn't know there was anything wrong with me. Even when I got finally diagnosed, I still felt okay. It wasn't as if I had to go to the doctor because I was ill. I went because I'd been suggested. It had been suggested by the team doctor that you should have a diabetes test. I think that's probably, well, Carl can answer that better than me, but this is probably the difference between type 1 and type 2. I suspect that it comes on slowly.
Yeah, and thanks, Rod. Can I just point out that for most people in New Zealand, their diagnosis of diabetes is discovered incidentally by their doctor now. So we recommend that your GP does diabetes tests as part of your health heart check. And that usually begins around the age of 35 to 40. It depends on some risk factors that you might have. You might even start at a younger age. But for most people, their GPs will be starting to do their diabetes tests as part of their routine heart health checks. And that's happening for most people in New Zealand. So if you haven't been to your GP and you haven't had your heart health check, then you should do that.
Great message there. Excellent stuff. Now, I've got a question for you, Rod. What type of pump does Rod have? This is from Sean. Zoe, his 8-year-old, has type 1 and wants to know.
I have a tandem.
Awesome. Fantastic. And then we have another question come in from Sean, was it as well? Yes, excellent. Dr. Carl, what's the one best diabetic piece of advice you can give for an 8-year-old living with type 1? That's a great question as well.
Look, when I see people with type 1 diabetes, I really have a common message to them, and that is type 1 diabetes is a bit of a hassle. It's a hassle at times, but that's all it is. It is nothing that will change your life. You will live a fantastic life, and it is treatable. You can do all the things that your friends will do, and uh, it'll add a bit of hassle, but that's it.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Another question that's come through, which I think is relevant for all of you. Question from Athalia, I hope I said that correctly. How would you approach someone if you think that they're showing signs to go to the doctor? That's a big question. Vincent, Abby, let's start with you on this one.
Oh, man.
That's a hard one. I guess it depends on your relationship with the person. But I would, Presley got into such a bad state that I wouldn't hesitate. And if I saw symptoms that were similar, I wouldn't hesitate in telling them to seek medical advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that we do have a daughter who is type 1 and now we're experiencing, living with type 1, diabetes, we'll be able to approach it, I guess the best way possible. But yeah, I think it's good to have healthy conversations anyway with people around you, and to not be whakama about it. I think it's good to always be open about it. And yeah.
I totally agree. Now, as you can probably see on the screen, Rod's just had to pop away, unfortunately. So no doubt Rod will watch this on demand after the live stream. So kia ora, Rod, thank you so much for joining us today. Very quickly from you, Dr. Karl, as well, how would you open up that conversation?
Sorry, the conversation, it was just
around
cutting
if you
in and
see
out
someone, gotcha. If you see someone with signs or symptoms, what's the best way to approach that?
Yeah, sure. So, look, I think most people, if someone's noticing that they have signs or symptoms, or you're seeing someone with signs or symptoms about diabetes, it's just encouraging them to go and have a simple check with their GP. It's not hard, it's not difficult, it's a simple blood test, and it takes minutes, if that, and it's and that's it. So if you know someone that you think is at risk of diabetes, they haven't been to their doctor, they haven't had a check, just encourage them along. It's a simple test to do, and only needs one visit. So that's that would be my message. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, this live stream was supposed to be 30 minutes tonight, so we've gone just a little bit over time. But the conversation is worth it, and I'm so grateful to have so many of you on the live stream tonight, sharing what insulin means to you and sharing your own diabetes story. So sorry we can't answer every single question, but the team at Diabetes New Zealand will be able to go in there and respond to your questions. There's some great ones coming through in the feed. Keep them coming through, and if you want more information, you can head to the Diabetes New Zealand website, diabetes.org.nz. For now, I do want to thank all of our guests. Rod, who has already departed, Dr. Karl, thank you so much for being part of the stream. We've had several comments come through saying, wow, I never knew this about the history of insulin. So thank you for sharing your magic and all that incredible story. Thank you so much. And I believe we are going to be finishing up tonight with Vince and Abby. But before we go, so if you guys want to get ready, I'll do the final call out to everybody who is part of the chat. So we'll see you guys in just a second. Well, thank you everyone for being part of this. What a big live stream. 100 years since the discovery of insulin. What a momentous occasion. I am grateful that you got to share this with all of us. We're all whānau, we're all in it together. It is, as we've learnt tonight, and we know firsthand, it's a life-giving medication for millions of people all over the world and has made such a big impact. Before it was discovered 100 years ago, diabetes was a fatal condition, or very, very challenging to live with. And so now, thanks to Banting and Best, as we've heard tonight, insulin is absolutely saving lives. So we want to thank you all for being part of the stream, and it would be great to see more New Zealanders able to access that technology. For anybody who's in government watching tonight, or if you're not in government, share this with Wild Abandon. We want to get that technology funded and make living with diabetes just that bit easier. So now it's time to head away. I'm Monique Bradley, your host for this evening. I want to say a big shout out to all of the sponsors and supporters that have made this happen, and a shout out to our producer. To finish up, it is my great pleasure to introduce you to the wonderful talent and the heart behind this incredible song, Overwhelmed. Vince and Abby are here to perform this song, dedicated to everyone living with diabetes and everyone supporting someone with diabetes. Now, if you haven't done it already, please, please, please download this song and encourage all your friends and whānau to download it. Not only is it beautiful to listen to, proceeds from every download go back directly to Diabetes New Zealand to help them continue that great work they do to help people live their best lives. Time for me to go. Ka kite anō e noho rā. Over to you, Vince and Abby.
Thank you. Kia ora te whānau, ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, and we just want to say thank you for having us. We want to dedicate this to everybody watching, all the whānaus out there, all the families out there with type 1, living with type 1 diabetes, and just want to say, bless you guys, and I hope this song blesses you guys. We wrote this for our kids, but we wanted to extend this to everybody out there. And we hope that you fellas are blessed by this song. Cool. Overwhelmed, the moment you laid your eyes on me, I felt heaven in every breath you take in a different place. Different space I felt overwhelmed. The moment you called me daddy, my heart would melt. The weight of the world would drift away like a lullaby. I would sing to you in my arms. I will hold you. I'm so in awe of you. I never knew love so true until there was you. I saw you beating hard, I could tell that nothing would ever be the same my whole life. Led me right here to this place. I will hold you. I'm so in awe of you. I never knew love so true, yeah, until there was you. I know there will be times when you feel alone. Just know it will be there to bring you home. And one day when we've reached the finish line, you'll be strong, brave, kind, and wise. Overwhelmed, the moment I held your body to my skin. Nothing else seems to matter, for my heart will be wherever you are. hold you. I'm so in love with you. I'm so in love with you. I never knew it was so true. Oh, until there was you. Until there was you. I will hold you. I'm so in love with you. I never knew what to do until there was you.